Today I'm going to be showing you how I turned this dump into a nice modern studio slash bedroom. Wow, yeah. I have an excuse. Let me give you an explanation. Well, there is no valid explanation for this mess, but I will say that only a third of it's mine because I was sharing a room with two other people. So, either way, I decided to start clearing it out and getting rid of all this garbage. So while the room was a mess, I decided I would start pulling the electrical, and don't worry too much if you can't do electrical. I'm sure your bedroom probably already has plugs. I just run electrical because I wanted it to look nicer, so I put a plug on the left wall there underneath where I knew my desk was going so I could put strip lighting. And I also put sconce lights on two of the walls, one on the back there where the piano was going, and then one on the left over my desk. I also decided that on the window wall I was going to put this Venetian plaster to kind of make it look like concrete. I ended up having a lot of trouble with this. It was like really peeling off a bunch. I'm sure a lot of that was my fault for maybe not preparing the surface properly. I don't really know, but I would suggest maybe not going with this brand and getting a better one. Either way, in the end, it all still turned out semi-decent. I also ended up painting the rest of my walls and ceiling white, and once that was done, I was able to turn the lights on. Yeah, I was able to hang the sconce lights and the fan once it was painted. That's how you normally do things, so yeah. And these are shelves that I built for my closet. I'll get into how I made those later. Then I finally was able to take out all that carpet. Wait a minute. Got a little golf course under my carpet. Too bad it has to go because I got a desk that needs to be built right there. So, yeah, actually for this desk, it was actually surprisingly simple. I drew lines on the wall where I wanted it to go and then kind of just built frames out of wood. And literally just screwed them to the wall on the back there. Definitely try to aim for studs when you do that. And then, yeah, covered the top with plywood, covered the sides with plywood, and I was ready to go. So once all the frames were down, I was able to go ahead and put the flooring in, and I wanted it to line up with the flooring in the hallway, so just got my laser out, and yeah, put the flooring in, put the baseboards in, caulked those, painted those, and yeah, I was feeling good. Okay, yeah, act like that didn't happen. The sprayer was broken, but don't worry, we got it figured out. Once everything was painted though, I was able to take all the paper and tape off, and man, isn't that satisfying. Since I now wanted my room to be modern, I decided to get a floating bed off of Amazon as well. And it wasn't too hard to put together. It came with strip lights. I thought that was pretty cool. And yeah, don't worry, that's not the mattress I'm going to be using. Anyways, to the left of my desk, I knew that I wanted some sort of tall bookshelf thing with like drawers. And I had a dresser from IKEA already. And yes, there's a cute puppy walking around on my bed in the background. Anyways, I ended up putting the IKEA dresser in the corner next to my desk, and I actually built my desk purposely at the exact spot to where that dresser would fit on the left side there. I did have to cut some of the pieces of the dresser off, like little lips on the edges that kind of stuck over. Then I just made a frame out of plywood for the actual tall part on top of that, and then used plywood to make the doors. I also ended up getting iron-on strips for the sides of the door where like the ugly side of the plywood is visible from the cuts, and so it actually works semi-well, so definitely give that a try. So the next step was actually to paint the whole thing. I believe the color I went with was Cracked Pepper by Bear, but I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. And sadly I got overspray on my freshly white painted walls, so yeah, I had to go over that and repaint it white. Should have put more paper down. But yeah, I was not lying. I did get a new mattress. It fit much better and actually was horrible. I ended up switching it out again later on. So back in my tiny closet, I wish it was bigger, but it is what it is. I wanted to put like my shoes there on shelves and then another shelf with like a mini fridge under it, and I ended up putting my laundry basket under there too. But basically how I did it was I built the frames out of wood, and then I cut plywood and then 45'd all the edges. So as you can see here, like the 45 is sticking over, and then the piece that goes in front is also 45, so that when they line up, it just creates like a nice little edge there. You don't see that cut side of the plywood. I also did the same thing on the left side there where the mini fridge was going, but I was able to cut that piece short because since the fridge was going to be there, it was just kind of going to block that little side there. And I actually ended up having just enough room to fit my laundry basket on the right side of that mini fridge, so I'm glad that worked out. So for my desk, it actually was kind of the same process to make it as the mini fridge area over there with the plywood, because for my desk, I had built it out of like 2x4s and plywood, and then the top is actually just like porcelain slabs, which is basically like a form of tile, but it's just instead of using the plywood like I was using earlier, I used those tiles and 45'd all of those so that the corners were nice, and I ended up sanding the corners down and stuff. But it was a process cutting. I'll get into that later, but basically I wanted to kind of pick and choose which tiles looked like they would go in the right spot. So like lining up the grains with the grains from the other pieces, so it kind of like flowed together. So actually how I cut this was I put it on a table saw with like a tile blade and used a sponge and water on that sponge to kind of like keep it wet. And then, yeah, literally angled the saw at 45-degree angles when I needed to. And then for the other 45-degree angles that were different, I was able to use like a piece of metal as a straight edge and then just like clamp it down and use a grinder to cut that across. So to glue this on, I actually used like a construction adhesive caulking and then used like tape to kind of hold it in place so it didn't sag or fall off while it was drying. And then I taped all like the edge areas that were around like those seams and used like this weird grout caulk to fill in that. It ended up being like a really weird sticky formula, so if I were to do it again, I would just use regular caulking because I had done it on the back wall too, and then it got dirty, and when I tried to like repaint over it, it just didn't stick because I guess it was like a non-stick formula. But either way, overall, I was very happy with how this desk turned out. It wasn't too hard, and it added like a nice, clean, modern look to the room, so really happy about that. So, besides a few loose ends, I was finally able to start decorating. I had so much fun with this. I got like a massive line painting from Home Goods. I put a few guitars on the wall, a couple violins, my computer in, piano, mini fridge stocked, all that stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this room. I've had so much fun in here, and I'm so glad I was able to have this opportunity. So get out there, go make something, remodel something. I mean, it doesn't have to be to this extent, but you know, you could do something small here and there. And be sure to subscribe if you want more videos like this, and I'll be posting more videos.